everyone. It's Kate. Welcome back to another episode of the Omnichannel Marketer. I'm excited to have Sandra Velasquez here on the show today. Sandra is the founder and CEO of Nopalera, a Mexican botanical for bath and body. Sandra, super pumped to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to chat.
Likewise. So, Sandra, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Nopalera and building that brand? Would love to understand a little bit more of the story there.
Yeah. So oddly enough, I had no desire, dream, inclination to become an entrepreneur. No one in my family is an entrepreneur. I have actually, been a professional musician most of my adult life. And I thought that that's what I was put on earth to do. So I was writing songs, recording albums, touring. I was the lead singer of a Latin alternative band called Pistolera, sang in Spanish. And so that was really my first platform to celebrate culture and tell stories. So it seems, like, how do you go from being the lead singer of a band to being an entrepreneur? But the mission is the same. Obviously, I had to learn new skills. I had to learn about product formulation and all of that. But the mission that I'm pushing is exactly the same. I'm promoting culture. I'm promoting, cultural storytelling and pride in who we are. So I launched in the pandemic in November 2020. I had no idea how to get products made. So I actually enrolled in formulation school and made the products myself for the very first year, which was very challenging because, being a manufacturer and also running a company are two separate roles. And it took me an entire year, the first full year of business, to find co-packers that would take over my formulas. That was a huge defining moment, like when I no longer had to go to the soap studio and make the products. And the brand took off pretty quickly, really because I spent a year working on the brand beforehand. So I spent a year working on formulation. I spent a year working on the brand, meaning like not just the logo, but like, what is this brand about? What is the mission? Who is the customer? What is the opportunity in the marketplace? Really studying the competitive landscape. And so I did all of that hard work, foundational work in 2019, so that when I launched in 2020, we were basically off to the races.
And so when you were doing that foundational work, what were some of the opportunities that you discovered that gave you that taking off moment?
Yeah, I was doing a lot of research, a lot of just reading on the internet, buying books, listening to podcasts, and really understanding. I think the first thing is that, beginning with the end in mind. I'm a big fan of the 7 Steps of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And one of them is begin with the end in mind. And I always tell this to other founders as well, when they say, like, how do I start a brand, or how do I get into this store? The answer is I always say the same thing. I sound like a broken record. I've said this like on millions of interviews, is to begin with the end in mind, meaning like, where does this brand live? What is the ultimate goal? And then work backwards to figure out how to get there. So for me, my idea was I'm going to build a high-end Latina brand that's going to sit on the shelves of premium retailers. So what does that brand need to look like? What does the ingredient panel need to look like? What does the price point need to look like? What does the packaging need to look like? And literally worked backwards from there, because then you're designing and creating a brand for a destination instead of just like making a brand in a silo and then going out into the world and trying to figure out where to put it. So I think that is, that's what I did. So I studied my competitive landscape at my destination retailers, at Credo Beauty, at Nordstrom, right? What are those price points? What are the sizes? I formulated with Credo Beauty in mind, because they have a very, very strict ingredient standard. So not every product can get into Credo for that reason. And then really just studying, the opportunity, like there was just no other high-end Latina brands in the category, like in beauty, period. And then it was about deciding which category of beauty was I going to be in. I originally started thinking that I was going to launch in skincare, and really, really grateful for my friend Julie, who is a brand advisor to me, who guided me into bath and body, because that's really where the opportunity was. Skincare is so saturated. Everyone wants to do skincare, but I also just realized I'm not really passionate about reducing fine lines or wrinkles. I want nothing to do with the anti-aging movement. So bath and body was more about ritual and self-care, and I could definitely get behind that.
And so what about bath and body specifically creates the opportunity there?
There's just less competition in bath and body. There's just less brands. Everyone that's a beauty founder immediately wants to go build a skincare brand. And, and you're talking about competing for like this much part of your body, right? Like skincare is the face, whereas Bath and Body is everything below the neck. So it just creates an opportunity for, with skincare, yes, you can have rituals, like gua sha became very trendy here, and like massaging your face and all of that. But for me, Bath and Body, I'm a very practical person. So I wanted it to be something practical, daily use, that also we could elevate. So for me, we make soaps, scrubs, and lotions. Like these are all things that people already use. And we're just going to make them more beautiful, and we're going to make them from our point of view.
And so, backing up to your point of view, could you, talk a little bit more about that being an integral part of your brand story?
You mean the Bath and Body component?
Yeah, and the Nopalera brand itself, like, when you talk about your point of view and your mission.
Yeah. So from the beginning, I knew that I was going to build a very overtly Latina brand, meaning like when you look at the packaging, you're like, that's a Latina brand. I knew that I was going to put the name in Spanish, because again, part of what I wanted to do was to disrupt what's really been historically a Eurocentric category. So many brands with French names, Italian names, so much so that even American brands, like this is how crazy it is to me, that even American brands give themselves French names. Like they're not even French, but they give themselves French names because we've all just been conditioned. We've been like sold this mentality that somehow if it's from Western Europe, it must be fancy, it must be high quality, it must be worthy of a higher price tag, it must be better. And so I was like, no, we are done with that. Like that era is over. The people that actually live in this country, the number 2 language is Spanish. It's not French, it's not Italian, it's Spanish, And so why aren't there more brands with Spanish names on shelves? Why aren't there already 5 brands like Nopalera on shelves, given who lives here and who shops, who over indexes in this category? So for me, that's why it felt like such a lightning bolt calling of a moment when I had the idea, because I really felt like, wow, if I don't do this, someone like Johnson & Johnson is going to come and try to do this, and they're going to do it poorly in like in a culturally appropriating way. So it has to be me, So I think that was, and then the nopal, what people call in English the prickly pear cactus, is not a new ingredient. I have not discovered an ingredient. This ingredient has been here for thousands and thousands of years. It is so Mexican. It's on the Mexican flag. Mexicans have historically eaten it. It's a food. Like we eat it. Every single Mexican person, of which there are millions in this country, eat nopales. Like this is just, it's like saying I invented bread. No, it's been here forever, So this is not something new. It literally just would need to be brought to the forefront. And I wanted to make sure that it was actually owned by a Latina.
As a Latina brand, is your target customer other Latinas living in the U.S. first, or is it, a more broader audience than that?
I would say that is our initial base consumer, right? Those are the people that get it immediately because they already know what a nopal is. There's people that don't, they're like, what's a nopal? What's a nopalera? Like they've never heard this word before. Anyone who is Mexican already knows what this is, so they get it. So they are the first people to be attracted to what I call the brand magnet. And then other people are attracted to it just because it's beautiful, because it's intriguing, because of the sustainability, because it has a point of view. So definitely, I didn't create it just for Latinas. I created it to really elevate our culture and propel it into this luxury space where it has not historically been.
And so you talk about the brand's point of view. What are the different mechanisms that you use to tell that point of view?
Brand voice and messaging is important. I think a lot of brands leave that out. A lot of people don't understand the importance of copywriting and just brand voice in general. And for me, that's all the early work that I did, in the beginning when I was building the brand in 2019 before we launched, was really identifying what is the brand voice? What does the brand voice say? What does the brand voice not say? And really leaning into, our core values, as a brand. So you have to have core values. First of all, I should say, if you want to speak to them. So every brand should have core values. What do you stand for? And if you stand for those things, what is someone who stands for those things? What do they say? Mm-hmm. It just makes it so much easier if you have the foundation of your brand because then you're not just guessing and making things up. You know, everyone that works at Nopalera knows what our core values are. They know what our brand voice is. So anyone can go and literally create a social post or send an email from that brand voice because they know what it is.
Makes complete sense. So, you know, you talked a lot about this like foundational brand work you did in 2019. So when you launched in 2020, what did that look like? Did you launch on your D2C site, in retail, on Amazon? You know, where did you launch first?
I launched on D2C on our website. I turned on our website, but literally the first day we got not only D2C orders, but wholesale inquiries. And that was a surprise to me because I, as a former sales rep in CPG, was prepared to go out and like get that business, you know, like to work hard for it and to like contact people because that's what I knew how to do for other brands. And I didn't have to do that. And it was a surprise to me. And like, even still to this day, I'm surprised by how many wholesale applications we get. We have a link in our footer of our website where wholesale boutiques can apply to be our stockist. And we've had to turn down like hundreds. I mean, like hundreds, like over 400. We've had to say no to over 400 because they're in conflict of distribution with other stores that we're already in. And they found us because of social media, because I had been starting to run ads, you know, since day zero. Like I worked on building my email list in advance so that when I launched, I had someone to launch to. And it makes sense to me because these boutique owners are run by people and those people have Instagram accounts. And so they're on the same platforms that our D2C customers are on, and they're seeing the same ads. And that's what happened. That's how people found us.
So it sounds like you had very early wholesale orders. You know, from launching on D2C, you ran ads, you built an email list. So you really had a following at that point. You know,
yeah.
What did you do next after launching on D2C? You know, how did that transition to the brand that you are today become?
Yeah. So also really early, like within the first week of launching, I was contacted by a sales manager, a sales representative. And because what happened was on the day that we launched, Beauty Independent ran a feature article announcing like Nopalera, New Mexican Botanical Bath and Body brand launches today. And because of that, and because the photos, you know, and the branding was so stunning, it immediately, like the phone started to ring, so to speak. And so I got an email from Priscilla who said, hey, you know, I have 18 years of experience in sales of, you know, luxury goods. And I'm looking to add more Latina brands to my portfolio. And so literally within the first week of business, I had like sales rep. And thank God, because she took over all of these wholesale inquiries that were just rolling in. And we ended that first year with like 300 boutiques, you know, and these are people that applied to become our stockists. I think she went after a few of them. There were some that she particularly wanted, but most of these boutiques apply to be a stockist through the footer of our website, and they still do to this day. And then, of course, she was able to go out and, you know, get meetings with, you know, Nordstrom and Credo. But I was also in the Credo for Change program. You know, I was selected to be in that program, and so that put me closer to them, and they got to meet me. I think just, you know, I really believe that we built a brand magnet that attracted people to us. And, you know, because people always ask me, like, how did I get into these stores? And it's like, those stores came to us. And that I realized that that's like not a helpful answer because, you know, what am I supposed to say? Hey, just let people come to you. But the point is, like, the takeaway here is that, like, I think a lot of founders don't spend enough time building the foundation of the brand. They want to like just get to launch. They just want to like make their product and like get into stores. But it's like, it's so crowded. It's so saturated. Like, you have to build something that really, really differentiates itself, that really has like strong brand positioning. And that takes time. Like, that's not something that you do quickly.
And so what does this distribution look like now? I think you mentioned, you know, Nordstrom, Credo. What would you say is kind of the breakdown of sales across all of those channels? And, you know, how do you think about your end-to-end brand experience, you know, as this now omni-channel brand across those different channels?
Our business is about 50% D2C, 50% wholesale. Maybe a little skewed from last month because of Shark Tank. A lot of people came, you know, to our website, new people, like thousands of new people. But for historically, like last, you know, at the end, like last year, our business was really 50-50. And wholesale, you know, again, I want to highlight this because I think this is super important for anyone out there that's interested in wholesaling or, you know, working with name retailers. Of that 50% of our business that's wholesale, 75% of it, like the majority, is coming from the boutiques. It's not coming from Nordstrom. It's not coming from Credo. Amazon is very new for us. We just only launched last month. Or actually, no, we did launch at the end of last quarter, but we didn't tell anyone. We literally just put ourselves on Amazon for Shark Tank preparation. And so, what I always want to what I always want to highlight to other founders or builders out there is that you have to be very clear and cognizant of the purpose of your wholesalers. Like, is it for credibility? Is it for name recognition? Is it for revenue? Because they're not always the same. We are not, we did not do $633,000 last year because of Nordstrom. Right. So I want to make it very clear, because from the consumer standpoint, and I know this because when I used to work in CPG, I would get the same reaction from other people when I said, like, oh, this, the brand I'm working for, we got into Whole Foods, and people would go like, ooh, that's so amazing. Like, you've made it. No, it does not mean that you are successful. It does not mean that you are making money. It does not mean that you are profitable. It doesn't mean any of those things. So be very, very clear and like have your eyes open about what the purpose of that relationship is. We're not going to become a $50 million brand because of Credo. They're a 5-store chain. It's just not possible. You know what I mean? So you have to just be very, very clear. Like, look at where the money's actually coming from.
And for your brand, is that from the boutiques, or, does the boutiques become, talk to me about how you think about the different strategy and purpose of the channels that you're in right now.
Yeah. So obviously D2C, we always want to get people to our website because then we get their email addresses, right? We want to build that community. We want to bring them into our world. For the boutiques, it's highly curated. We're not competing with thousands of brands on the shelf. It's not Target. These are tiny lifestyle boutiques that have very limited brands. And so you stand out on the shelf better. It's great for cash flow because these boutiques prepay. So this is not like a net 30, net 90, like how it is with other retailers, and it's also about brand awareness, right? I get like texts all the time from people that are like, I'm in this small town in Idaho and I just saw your brand in this boutique, so people start to see us everywhere and they feel like we're everywhere. And so the boutiques, it's also, they have to be guarded, right? This is why we have turned down hundreds of them, because we don't want to be in all of them. Not all of them are good. And so we've been very conscious of, protecting brand integrity through distribution. And then Amazon is just an undeniable beast. Like, you cannot deny Amazon as a channel. And I was putting it off for as long as possible. But then, when Shark Tank was approaching, my other founder friends who had been on the show, they were like, you have to be on Amazon. Like, people are going to go there first. And so we did. And we did. We did like $90,000, in January because of Shark Tank from Amazon only. Right. Wow. So it was like over 3,000 orders just on Amazon from like January 20th to February 1st. And then the bigger retailers are really for like credibility, right? Like Nordstrom, Nordstrom is not paying my employee bills. They are not paying into my employee 401k. Credo is really for that Credo clean, credibility, because if you are in Credo Beauty, everyone in the industry knows that you have the highest ingredient standards, because they're so strict. And so we want to align with that type of retailer, right? So they all have different purposes, right?
Makes complete sense. Thank you for sharing, how you think about each of those channels. So Shark Tank, personal favorite show of mine. How did Nopalera get onto Shark Tank? How do you think about Shark Tank as, a marketing channel for Nopalera?
So Shark Tank is a very long process. I think that most people probably don't realize that, from the time that you submit or apply to the time that you air could be like a year. Like, it is not like, oh, I need $100,000. Let me apply to be on Shark Tank. And then you're on Shark Tank, So Shark Tank is a very much, it's a long play. It's a real investment of your time and energy. It literally is like a part-time job. And they tell you this up front. They're very clear. Like, this is, you're going to be in weekly meetings on Zoom. You're going to have to fill out tons of paperwork. You're going to have to submit all of your documentation for everything. Intellectual property, corporate documents, financials. Like, it's literally like talking to investors. And so fortunately, I had started to raise at the same time. So I had a data room already. But, I applied back in March. It was like a year ago that I applied. online, no connections. I didn't know anybody there. I applied, I heard back, and then it's, video auditions, and, vetting, they want to ask you a bunch of questions. They want to meet you. They ultimately need to understand, like, are you going to be someone that knows how to perform on television? And it's a television show, right? And so, then you get assigned producers, and then you meet with them for like months. They have to vet every single thing, your wardrobe, your display, you have to create everything. And then all through this process, right? Again, I don't know if people realize this, but you can go through this process and even film your episode and still not air. So it's a real investment and really nerve wracking that you can put in all this work and time and energy, and then no one might know.
Like it could never air after all of that work.
Yeah, because they overfilm and not everyone's episode airs. Because ultimately, not everyone is good on television. Some people are boring, and they are very clear, like, this is a television show. Like, let's be clear. This is a television show. It needs to have an emotional arc, and so fortunately for me, again, I'm like a veteran performer. I've been on stage for 20 years. So I had that in my back pocket. So I looked at it like, okay, I'm going to go play a gig. That's how I looked at it. I'm going to go give a great performance. I'm going to go play a gig, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to really tell the world what this brand is about.
Did you take investment from Shark Tank, or did you just really think of it as a marketing channel?
So if you've seen the episode, you'll see that I was offered 2 deals and I turned them down. And I think that was a first. It was definitely a first by a Latina on the show to go on and get 2 offers and then say, you know what, that's not enough, or like, I can't give up that much equity. Like, I know that I'm going to go raise more. And I did, right? After 2 months after I filmed Shark Tank, I went on to raise 2.7 million in my first, oversubscribed seed round. Whereas, the Sharks wanted to offer me $300,000 for 30% of my company. So the lesson there was that, we always need to be clear about our value and not be scared to stand in it, and to know that there's always more opportunities, that just because someone is offering you something does not mean that you have to say yes. I really went in with the mentality like, I am the opportunity for you. And if you don't want to take it, then that's really your loss.
I literally love to hear that. Know your value and, don't take less than that. I think, especially as a female founder who has raised myself, I could, continue to tell myself that when I'm, on the fundraising trail. So thank you for sharing that, Sandra. So we talked about, before we started filming, a little bit about how you're, really passionate about mindset and having the right mindset. Could you talk a little bit more about, why you're passionate about that topic?
Yes. I spent all of my 20s, all of my 30s, like just surviving, like paycheck to paycheck, never having enough money, never having a savings account. And I think that, coming from immigrant parents, my parents have done well considering where they came from. They live in a nice house now, they drive a Volvo, but my father used to pick fruit in Central Valley, and my mother was a Mexican immigrant who came here when she was an adult. And so they have done well. But there is still this, mentality in our community that like money is just this tool to survive. And once we have like the bases covered, like, why would you need more? And so I really had to, first of all, identify, these thoughts or this kind of way of thinking, because the problem is that we inherit a lot from our parents that we don't even realize. And, we think of things as just facts, like, oh, this is just how it is, or this is how the world is. But really we were conditioned to believe that, or we were passed down beliefs by our parents first and foremost. And so I never had money. And in order for me to build this company, I realized I was going to have to change my beliefs around money. I was going to have to change my beliefs about what was possible, about what I deserved or what I was worth. And that took a lot of work. It took reading different books. It took hanging out with different people. It took joining a mastermind. So all of that requires an effort. It doesn't come to you. The change is not going to come to you, to your house, and take you out of your bed and say, hey, Kate, like, here's a new way to think. Like, it's not going to come and discover you. You have to actively want to change and the way that you think. And so that was I'm still doing that, by the way. This is not like, oh, I did it and now I'm good. Like, this is an ongoing thing where I'm always having to, check myself and these thoughts that I have about any kind of limitations, so many of us have so many feelings around money that I feel like people are ashamed when they don't have money and people are ashamed when they have money. And so it's like, when are we allowed to feel good about money? Because people feel guilty that they have it. They feel bad that they don't have it, but people want to have it because they want to survive, right? They don't want to worry about paying the bills. They don't want to worry about, if they're going to get, evicted or late on a payment of something, but then people also feel weird when they have it. And this is why you see, people, like a very high percentage of people who win the lottery ultimately lose it all. And it's because they don't know who that version of themselves is who has money. There's so much, we get so comfortable in our story and who we say we are and who we've always been that it makes us uncomfortable to leave the gate. Like so many of us want to hang on to like, well, this is who I've always been. These are the people I grew up with. This is the neighborhood I grew up in. And this is who I am. And not everyone wants to like leave that because they feel like they're betraying their roots. They feel like they're betraying who they were, their parents, whatever. Right. Again, it's like guilt and shame. And so that is something that I had to work on a lot. And I've completely changed my mindset around money. Now I just see money as an energetic tool. I see money as like limitless. I literally think money is infinity. I don't think that I know that money is not a pizza. It's not like if I have 4 slices of the pizza, you only get 2, Kate, right? That's not how money works. Money is literally limitless and it's just an energetic tool. Like if all the humans disappeared off the face of the planet, money would mean nothing because we are the people that we assign it, a meaning and it means something with us, but without us, it means nothing. And so, that is the work that I have done and that I continue to do. And when I see other founders who come to me, like asking for advice, like, they want to know like, how much does branding cost? How much does this cost? Like they're scared to spend money. And, because we come from this place of like, we feel that every dollar we spend is going to be our last dollar. Like if I spend this money on branding, Kate, like what if it doesn't work out? Right? If I buy this thing, like what if it doesn't do what I want it to do, right? Because we feel like we've lost something, but the reality is that money can always come back to you, and so I'm a huge proponent in investing in myself. I have no problem spending money on myself, thankfully. So investing in myself by enrolling in formulation school, investing in myself by joining a mastermind, investing in myself by, going on a retreat, whatever it is, because those are the things that ultimately change your mindset in your life.
Yeah, that makes complete sense, Sandra. Okay, moving quickly into our lightning round here. Favorite omnichannel brand?
Right now I'm going to say I really love Tower 28.
Thing you wish you could change about our industry?
Access.
Not the first time I've heard that one. Favorite podcast?
How I Built This with Guy Raz.
Classic. Favorite newsletter?
I'm going to say mine. Not the Nopalera one, but I have a separate one for entrepreneurs that's just super transparent. And I wish that I had been on that email newsletter list when I was building.
I'd love to subscribe. Favorite social media channel?
It's still Instagram.
Favorite book?
Favorite book is Good to Great by Jim Collins.
That one is a great one. Favorite event you're planning on going to this year?
I'm planning on going to the Latitude Conference. I know this sounds very boring because it's business, but the Latitude Conference is put on by my lead investor. It's going to be in Miami in September at the Fontainebleau.
Amazing. And what is Latitude focused on?
Latitude is it's a Latino business conference of like 4 days, 6,000 Latinos across all industries. I went to it last year as a new portfolio company, and I have just never been in a place with that many Latinos, professional Latinos in my life. So it was just really a great experience.
That sounds amazing. Where can our listeners connect with you?
You can find us on our website, nopalera.co, not .com. Also on Instagram, nopalera.co. Also on TikTok, same handle. And, Amazon, Shopify, Nordstrom, Credo, and, over 400 boutiques across the country.
Amazing. Sandra, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you.
Have a great one.
Thank you.
If you liked this podcast, follow me and The Bridge page on LinkedIn and Twitter for hot takes and tactical advice. If you really loved today's episode, we'd love a review on the podcasting platform of your choice, Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thanks for listening.